Talk about what needs to be talked about. We'll talk about Michael Knight and New York Vinnie, Mikey and Vinnie taking on the world, which we are right now because we are live on YouTube, on Facebook, on whatever else we're live on. Whoever's
We're
pirating
not.
our signal.
Yeah, we're not live on Twitter because
No,
we're on the edge of that.
I've gone back and forth with that one, Michael, and I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't perceive Twitter, and maybe I'm 100% wrong on this, but I don't perceive Twitter as a platform where people have a long attention span. The whole construct of Twitter really is, 200 and whatever words, characters. It used to be 140, right? When it first
140,
started,
right?
they expanded it because they found out that nobody can say anything in 140 characters anymore.
Well, yeah, Donald Trump has difficulty because he has to work in so many phrases that are part of the screed. He has to start with witch hunt and the greatest in the world and the most impressive and there's about 20 phrases that he uses over and over again. We saw them all on CNN. You asked me before that thing was broadcast, are you going to watch that? I said, yeah, I am. And you said, whoa, I don't think I am. I don't think I want to be a part of that. I was curious about how they were going to do it, how they were going to present it, how they were going to get. I didn't know it was going to be a fix, that there was going to be an audience of MAGA supporters and an inability of Caitlin Collins to control the situation. And CNN, if they want to do another Don Lemon, they sure did it to poor Caitlin Collins. They just tossed her in there. I feel sorry for her, but she didn't squeal underneath the pressure. She went along with the joke.
Well,
And I think her career is ruined for it. I think it's tainted forevermore.
I have a bit of a different take on it. I actually remember saying that I was going to watch it and I actually agreed with CNN putting him on because he is the front runner for the nomination of the president of the United States for the
Well, yeah,
Republican Party.
but there are other things that he is as well that make him a danger to the very process that he wants to be a part of.
Right. I agree with that. But do you serve people by hiding that, or do you serve people by exposing it, by showing? I mean, do you think that anybody who watched that of reasonable mind, now I'm not talking about his acolytes, his people, but do you think that many people who are suburban swing voters, housewife swing voters, do you think anybody looked at that and said, gee, there's a guy I want to get behind for president? I mean, I know you had the idiots in the audience, a bunch of college kids for the most part.
No, there were some middle-aged people. There were
Yeah,
females.
but
There
it was a
were
frat party. It was for by and large a frat party. Um, the same people who would stand in front of a frat house in Pullman and cheer people slipping on the sidewalk.
well, they had a
And
keg. Remember, there was a
yeah,
keg involved. You got to have a
yeah,
keg.
and also a sidewalk that they had earlier pissed on. So I mean that's the I hate to
It's
say it, but that's the mentality.
that's the mob mentality. That's those are things happen when you're in a cult and the cult is enough of you around, so you got a mob, and you want to go break stuff. And they are a unit of destruction unto themselves. But now we know better. You saw what happened on TV. You saw how it got out of hand. You saw how there was no construction to it. That there was no fail-safe part to it. That CNN couldn't control it, and they have to eat shit for that, Vinny. They have
Well, yeah,
to, because
but
there was a book called The Black Sheep, and it says that in American politics and in American business, no one ever says, "What if this doesn't work? What's the worst that can happen on the other end?" They never spend any time
right.
in the research and development saying what would happen to Mikey and
Because
Vinny if
their
they had
egos
Trump
don't
on.
let them. Chris Lick's ego would
Yeah.
not let him say, "Well, what does this work?" He says, "I got this idea. I got Donald Trump. I am going to get double the numbers for this hour of television than Fox or than CNBC or
Yeah.
MSNBC or any other NBC. This is going to vault us into legitimacy. And what the effect it really had on people is it did the opposite. I think you're right. I think it damaged the whole spin in the media is that Caitlin Collins did a great job. I don't think she did a great job. I think for somebody that knows Donald Trump as well as she does, that she, especially when it came to that crap about the abortion, that they're ripping babies, killing
Yeah.
babies. Where was the challenge? Where was the wait a minute, Mr. President? Where was the look that said, if you and I were doing a show and we had somebody on like that and they were spewing that kind of stuff, we would end the interview.
It'd be over.
We would say, you're not going to come on our show and lie like that.
You have to act. We
my
treat.
studio.
Yeah, I had a rule, and it was simple. I'm the host, and I will treat you as if you are my guest. But if you don't act like a guest, if you get unruly, then as the host, I'm putting you out of the party.
Right.
And I never had to do it. And if you treat people with some sort of, but Trump is another example of how that doesn't apply to him. He's going to be a prick no matter what you do.
Right. You can't treat him with respect.
No.
You can't treat Donald Trump with respect, and you can't treat him with an expectation that he is going to do anything but just take over the hour. Now, that being said, I was extremely disappointed in her that she didn't, when he started talking about that stuff where Democrats are ripping babies, that she didn't say, Mr. President, we're going to end the interview right here. Turned to the camera and said, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but I will not have these kinds of lies, because she knew it was a lie. You didn't have to fact check that. You show me where there's one case of one person killing a baby after it's
At 9
out
months.
of the womb. It doesn't have, in very rare cases, very, very rare cases, if a health, but there's nothing after the baby is born. Then it's a human being. Then it's murder. Then it's something different. But to let him spew those lies, and you knew it was going to go belly up the minute that that he started spewing about the election. This guy cannot put the election behind him. He's not going to put the election behind him. He is bent on revenge for his losing that election.
I think he'll get his revenge. I think he will destroy the Republican Party as a result of this. And this idea that there are MAGA Republicans that are innocent in a way and childlike and don't mean anybody no harm. Today, Tommy Tuberville went off the rails, the senator from Alabama, the ex-football coach, saying that someone said, why are you identifying with white nationalists? He said, well, what's a white nationalist? He said, well, they're like Nazis. They're bad people. And he said, you think they're like Nazis? I think white nationalists are just Trump Republicans. That's what I've always said they were. White nationalists are just Trump Republicans. They don't mean anybody. They're not Nazis. I don't see it that way. I just see them as good Republicans. And what he's doing is endorsing white nationalism, getting away with it. This is how far we've slipped. And he did it with identifying the whole thing with this is just the work of Trump Republicans. This is how we do it. This is who we are. This is the kind of people we hang with. This is what we believe. And this is why I'm blocking all military promotions, because the military gives people a stipend if they get an abortion while in service. So I will stop all promotions across all the organized military branches of our government. And I'll see to it that nobody gets a raise until we satisfy Tommy Tuberville, white nationalist and Trump Republican.
The question I would have loved to have heard Caitlin Collins ask Trump, and I know she wouldn't, and probably not many hosts, but I think I probably would have gone there had I been in that situation, is, Mr. President, how many abortions have you personally been a part of? How many abortions have you
in a
either
party too.
paid for or had to have somebody that you were involved with have happen?
Well, I don't
How
recognize that. I've never seen that doctor. I've never seen that X-ray. I've never seen that imaging. I've never seen that woman. I've never seen any of
right,
those people.
right.
It's all just a
But
witch hunt.
that would have been the money question.
Yeah,
That would have
you're
been the
right.
question. I would have looked at her and said, "Now you got some. Now you at least you came back at him with something." She came back at him with nothing. And I
Nothing.
watched Lawrence O'Donnell last night on
Yeah,
MSNBC.
but he fried her.
He took apart the interview.
Well, and he didn't
Took
blame just
apart.
one person because we're blaming Caitlin Collins because she's a babe. She's a babe anchor.
Right.
And she is surrounded by high-paid executives and writers and producers, and they all failed in the same way. But Vinny, I'm surprised at that. I'm surprised that nobody on the staff, nobody on the team said we have to be prepared for a frontal attack. Here's your comeback for this. Here's your comeback for this. Here we'll place
Yeah.
what MSNBC said. Where was the sound? You didn't play sound. You didn't play audio. You didn't play video. You didn't play anything.
Yeah, you had if you had the questions, and those questions were thoroughly gone through. You didn't have anything that would have said, "Well, Mr. President, you're not telling the truth. This is what Mr. President, you're not telling the truth. This is what Mr. President, you're not telling the truth." And then on top of that, who was the person in charge of the crowd?
Yeah, who put that
That was
together?
supposed to be a crowd of undecided voters, uh, Republicans and independents who were undecided. There was nobody in that. I mean, women were having orgasms when they were asking them questions.
Yeah, it was ugly.
It was, oh, Mr. President, and he knew it. I mean, if Donald Trump knows anything, he knows how to read a room. And he knew he had the crowd on his side. And he knew he had, after probably the first two questions, knew he had a moderator that was not going to challenge him. I can only imagine what Jake Tapper or Breonna Keeler or
Anderson.
Anderson. I can only imagine what they had to be thinking sitting there. That this is, I mean, she's throwing him the biggest softballs in the world.
So was it a rating success or was it a disaster?
I think it was a success. I think they said, I think I saw a tweet somewhere, and I don't know. Well, it was from Brian Stelter, who used to be their media reporter until they got the skinny little guy now
Right.
and I think he said that they had triple or double their usual rating for that time slot, and they doubled the audience of Fox and or MSNBC. How would
I
Rachel
wonder.
Maddow handle that situation?
In fact, that's the question that Lawrence asked
Yeah,
last night.
yeah. How would I mean the wrong person for the wrong job?
And this is a network that has been making mistakes with talent from Cuomo to Don Lemon. Now this. She used to be the White House reporter. She covered Trump. She went through
Right.
his whole damn presidency for the most part, standing on the White House lawn, and some pretty strange times. Now, was she converted during that period of time? Did she become a Trump admirer?
Well, she was on. I think she was on Fox before she went to CNN, wasn't she?
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that she was actually a conservative.
She was. I
Um,
didn't know that.
yeah,
They played some of that stuff
reporter.
last night. Very conservative.
I think. Well, I know she worked for Fox, or I think she worked for Fox, but I also think that she worked for some kind of
Blog.
some kind of blog or something, because they showed a clip of her last night talking about how dangerous George Soros is.
foreign born,
The
comma.
foreign born.
Yeah. You can be foreign born, but you can't have money or influence.
Right.
Those are
If
illegal.
you're
I
foreign
think
born, you got to stay down there on the border and wait for your turn.
and I think that's in the Constitution, foreign born people. Keep that in mind. So if I
No,
call you foreign
I
born,
thought the only restriction I ever thought on foreign born people was that they couldn't be president.
they can't. You're absolutely right. George Soros cannot be president.
Nor could Bob Hope.
No, good point. He was born in Great Britain.
Right. So, because many times, as you remember when we were younger, many people floated the idea of Bob Hope running for president.
And if you want to know why he walks in such a breezy way, he'd been a hoofer as a kid, and he once you learn how to dance, you learn the moves. When you walk across the stage, you don't give it away. You do something. You present
Right.
yourself. Bob Hope had a great walk,
And a
stylistic.
great theme song.
Yeah, and so did Jack Benny, for that matter. Jack Benny had a very interesting, distinctive walk.
Yeah. Yeah. He had that. He had a, yeah, his walk was definitely, I always liked Jack Benny's walk much more than I like Bob Hope's.
What about John Wayne? John Wayne had a distinctive walk.
Yeah, definitely. But I always thought Benny he used his whole body in his walk. His arms were moving,
Yeah.
except when they were folded. He did that well. And he really, he was a great body comic. You know, he could do things with a gesture that would get you to. He didn't need a punchline. His gesture was his punchline.
Another guy who could do that make a punchline out of his body was James Brown. He would emphasize a great many things with just the look or the twitch of a shoulder or the click of a boot.
Right, when he would do that 1 foot kind of across the stage thing, you were watching James. There was nothing else in that theater that was going to be more interesting.
No.
You know where he was really great at that, and I can't. The only thing I could think of is that they just said to him, "Do what you do," was in the movie Ski Party, where James Brown and the Famous Flames are dressed up in ski sweaters.
Oh dear me, that's
and
very sad.
I got you in a ski lodge with a bunch of white kids sitting around. But the body language of him coming down the stairs and then setting up in front of the camera in the ski sweater, probably the only time in his life James Brown was ever in a ski sweater. And his feet, the way he moved his feet, just emphasized what he was doing. His feet were like punctuation marks.
Of course.
They really were. They put the emphasis on what he was singing and what he was saying.
The funny thing about when you were talking about that, the emphasis, I was thinking of the Temptations. They had a problem. The problem was they didn't have one guy up front that could dance. They had 5 guys.
Right.
And how are you going to control this? So here's the lead singer on this side and 4 guys doing the background vocals and doing a separate choreography. Lead singer's got one thing that he has to do, but the guys behind him are emphasizing everything, the lyrics, with their own choreography, their own spins, their own support of the lead song. And that's how you can't have 5 guys dancing loosely. So they choreographed it. They made it a piece. It was done. This is how we do it. We don't improvise. Right. Do your bit.
You're here. When you hit this note, you're here. And that's it. And it was the same, whatever show, one of the great luxuries we have today is you can go back on YouTube and find almost any television performance.
Yeah.
You go and pull out some of those performances from 64, 65, 66 with the Temptations, with Eddie Kendrick and you're looking and you're seeing that the settings are different, the stage is different, the crowd is different, but the choreography is the same.
Yeah.
It's the same. They're moving the same places at the same time. Each note is carefully crafted.
And it's
to
a different. It's like the Four Tops had different choreography from the Temptations.
right.
They had their own. They had their own style, and they did a good job. But they weren't as good as dancers as the Temptations were.
Yeah, the temps were far and away had that trick of matching the choreography to the
Yeah.
song and just the smoothness of it. The Four Tops didn't have, I thought, and again, in personal opinion, didn't have the smoothness
Yeah.
that the Temptations would do this and drive home an entire verse of a song.
Can't get next to you.
A little rough.
Doesn't. Yeah, it's something to see. It's really wonderful. There was another band who did choreography in a white guy way, and they took it pretty seriously. If you ever saw Paul Revere and the Raiders when they were
Yeah.
in their touring years, when they were doing Where the Action Is and had all their hit records, they would work up a sweat. They were like a marching band. They were doing kicks and splits and steps, and they were really serious about it. But it was really demanding. The guitarist and the bass man, Fang and was it Elliot, something like that.
Not Drake Levin.
He was the drummer.
The drummer. Yeah. Yeah. I can't.
Check it out. It's all on video. They didn't have a time. They had no time off during the song. They were doing steps. They were doing kicks. They
Right.
were, and the chorus comes and they do another set of lunges. And I saw them once in Corte Madera at the Rec Center, of all places, and little tiny stage. And they came out, man, and they were kicking out the lights. They worked hard. They put on a big show, and you were just absolutely swept up in it.
There's a clip that I have seen several times. I may have even posted it once or twice. And the shame of this is that they didn't stay together long enough to really develop it. But there's a great clip of Dion and the Belmonts doing I Wonder Why live with choreography.
Ah.
And there's a move where Dion comes up. He's the lead singer, obviously, but he changes places in the lineup. And out of all the moves I've ever seen like this, it's the only time I've ever seen this particular move. I'll have to put a link up and find a clip and put a link up. It's I Wonder Why, Dion and the Belmonts. And it's from a movie. And I just, there's something about, you look and you go, man, these guys could dance. These guys had they had that same Temptations type of choreography maybe a year or two before the Temps were doing it.
Just being from the Bronx gives you some level of artistry. You got to be able to walk down the street like you can dance.
Yeah. Well, it was almost as if the person who was doing this particular movie had watched West Side Story.
Oh, yeah.
And said, maybe we
could do
put
something like
things
that.
together here.
We could do something.
Maybe this is what we need to be doing. Maybe this is, this is going to add a little something. I mean, nobody was thinking about video in those days, I don't think.
No.
But unless you were doing a movie.
Right.
And we need something more. You know who else was like that too? Was Len Berry and the DeVelles.
Oh, really?
But they had a dance song that they were singing. So they had to come up with something, you couldn't
Bristol
just sit there and
Stomp.
sing the song. So
it's a dance even white guys can do. All you have to do is stomp.
Yeah, the kids in Bristol are sharp as a pistol when they do the Bristol Stomp. But Len Berry, besides the foot choreography, also had this kind of arm, almost like a flamenco dancer.
I know.
Do this thing, and I remember the first time I saw that, I was a kid. I think I walked around school doing that for like a month.
We got a regular Len Berry over here.
Yeah, just he had a way of moving his arms. So he's not only choreographing his lower body and his dance step, but he's
Yeah.
also
Yep.
doing his upper body and driving home the lines of the song, punctuating the song.
And those kind of moves worked well with the suits with the short coat, that the Temps were wearing, that
Right, those
Winbury was
sharks,
wearing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
those
yeah.
or those almost fluorescent colored suits that were made to pop out on color TV.
Beautiful. Yep. It had to be done.
Yeah, it was really some great stuff. I mean, we don't, I don't, we don't see that. I don't know about it all because I think you have, like you have the grand Katy Perry type stuff that,
Well, yeah, she has a show that's reminiscent of so many hip hop shows and stage shows recently, where the lead singer stands there in his parka while 20 people dance around him. That
yeah,
that's not necessarily moves that I would attribute to James Brown. That's more like
no, no,
you're just being a pedestrian when there's dancers around you.
right. But I do think that there's, that the Taylor Swifts, the Katy Perrys, um, a few other of that type of singer still keeps some of that around, but not like it was. I mean, you go back then, and now it's done with so many effects and CGs and
Yeah.
screens and this and that. These when Dion and the Belmonts were out there, there were four guys, five guys, and a hardwood floor.
Yeah.
That was it. Nobody photoshopped you. Nobody put this in, put that in. It was just a whole. It was pure talent.
Plus, it reminds me of off Broadway theater where the energy came from just 300 people watching a couple people on stage. It was bare bones. It was simple. There was no set. There was no lights. There was no action and cameras and props and all that stuff. So the individual moves, each move becomes magnified, becomes more important, becomes staging. It becomes your way to tell the story. Now, Dion and the Belmonts, when they were just on stage, just those guys brought an energy with them.
Yeah.
It was undeniable. You couldn't wait for the song to begin because they were gonna work, and the whole idea is a big vocal sound. We're committed to this trend that's going through New York, and it's beautiful to watch and great to listen to. Harmonies and power and the simple but absolutely effective arrangement.
Well, yeah, you had. I mean, I don't think they. I don't. I mean, I'm not going to say they didn't consciously do it, but there was. It was performance. It wasn't
Yeah,
just singing.
right.
When a lot of the and I give actually really Sammy Davis Jr. a lot of credit with this because he didn't go out there and just sing a song. He went out and performed a
Yeah.
song. He went out there and performed his act, and used the prop of a cigarette, of a drink, of whatever he was
The tie, the drums, the
tied,
dancing.
yeah, whatever it was that he was out there singing about, selling. He sold it not just with his voice, but with his actions, with the scenery, whatever
Yeah,
it was
right.
that he needed to do. And it was really, it's always fantastic for me to watch some of those great performances by bands like Paul Revere and the Raiders, and some of the other. What is the band I'm thinking of? It's just slipping my mind now. Just had it on the tip of my tongue. But there was a few bands, and then they went all the way to the extreme of uh, um, the crazy world of Arthur Brown and Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs.
Sam the Sham, what I liked about him is they put his organ up on blocks so he could play it. The height wasn't quite right, so they always had risers for Sam the Sham. And how many guys would start a rock and roll career now dressed in fedoras and some sort of Egyptian robes. I don't
No,
think
they
it
had
was.
the pharaoh hat.
They had turbans. They had
Turbans.
turbans.
Yes, that's I know we were looking for the same thing.
There we
Yeah,
go.
they had those turbans, man, and they came out and I mean, it was
Turbans and
you
strange
knew right
tuxedo
away it was
jackets.
different.
You know what it was? They were Texas rockers. There was like a Tex-Mex feel to their sound. Wooly Bully, my God, was totally border music.
Yeah, yeah, and even I'm trying to think of what's the band out of Texas? Doug Sam, the Sir Douglas Quintet.
Love the Sir Douglas Quintet. There's
Yeah,
nothing that they ever did that I didn't like. I love that stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah.
also,
They had that same. There was a genre of music down there that was not just songs, but it was performance.
yeah.
It was we were gonna give you not only a song, but a song and a dance and a look and just a whole different approach to rock and roll. It was rock and roll as theater as much as it was rock
Mm.
and roll as music.
And just to the end, when Sam died, when Doug Sam died, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
he was still playing with the original keyboard player from the Sir Doug Quintet. Augie Meyer was his name, and he had that distinctive Vox sound. It was part of the organ thing to all Doug Sam's hits, all Sir Douglas hits. He was there right through their entire career. I don't know what he's doing now. I hope he's okay. But he was a great distinctive organ player, and nobody can do
yeah.
like he could and get the same intensity out of it.
But there was probably never anybody who got more out of one note. Unless you were on Name That Tune. I mean,
And Freddie Fender ended up in their band, the Texas Tornadoes.
yeah, yeah. Another great talent. Boy, that was a guy that could sing some. I mean, rock and roll didn't hear too much from him because he was kind of in that Tex-Mex and country
Yeah.
vein. But boy, he had
He's a Mexican guy in a nudie suit.
yeah, he was. He had such a great and distinct voice.
Yeah.
If he brings you, I can't do it. I used to be able to actually do it.
No, he can. I don't know where Freddie is now. I hope he's still alive. But
I think he passed away several years ago.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, I think
he had that one big hit. It was a huge hit.
Well, yeah, he had that until the next teardrop falls.
Right.
Was his biggest song, but he had a bunch of other. I mean, he was huge in country.
Yeah.
Huge in country music, and also in the what is it, Tejano? Is it called? But that Tex-Mex border sound that sometimes is sung in both English and Spanish.
Spanglish.
Like, until the next teardrop falls was, I had.
It's got a Mexican verse. It's got a Spanish verse.
Right. There was another band in I think they were out of Southern California, Renee and Renee.
Oh yeah.
Who had a hit with a song called Lo Mucho Que Te Quiero. And they had that same situation where they had a bilingual. They put a bilingual song. It was actually a Spanish song that they had translated into English and had not a huge hit, but a hit.
There's a couple bands in the 60s that took all those influences and did it with garage rock. If you remember Question Mark and the Mysterians, they were a Latino band. And another great one with a super hit was the Rivieras with California Sun. Their version of that is remarkable. In fact, they had a hit in 1969. They did California Sun 69 or 65. And it was a hit again with the same guys, Latino band.
And the Ramones, I think, covered them as well with that song.
Oh, they did a great version of it.
Yeah, they did a great version. Ramones really knew how to cover a song. They had that distinct and unique ability to take a song that was a hit even a one-hit wonder,
Yeah.
and infuse the Ramones into it.
Give it our treatment.
Right, give it their treatment. You know, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, boom. You know, and yet keep the integrity of the original song. Um, they just had such a good sense of that, a good. I don't know who was doing the arrangements and everything. Um,
I think the guitarist, Johnny.
yeah,
Johnny.
I think John. Yeah, I think John. But it was just amazing to hear how they took somebody else's song and made it their own without destroying or even really moving the heart of the
Yeah.
song.
You know, Katie Clarkson said something on The Voice one night. She said, if you're going to do a cover, just realize that most people are going to hate you for trying to do the song that they already love by somebody else. So either make it your own or do it exactly like the artist did to satisfy them on that respect. And either way, you can't win. So you might as well make it your own. But understand that the audience will instinctively and unwillingly turn on you for that reason because they don't think you can do that song as well as the way they love it.
Right. Unless you pick a song that not that many people are familiar with
That's
and
that,
you cover
that's
it.
good. That's good. That's a good choice. Yes.
There was one of the great covers of I think of all time is the Johnny Maestro, who had a great voice
Mhm.
from Johnny Maestro and the Crest, and later on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yep.
Went back and grabbed um, a song that was done by Skeeter Davis and maybe it was Tom T. Hall.
Don't they know it's the end of the world?
No, it was they did Your Husband, My Wife. And it was a
Oh, I
song
remember
that was
that.
a minor hit for, and it was a
The,
duet.
the Brooklyn Bridge did it.
It was a minor hit for uh, Hall and Skeeter. But Johnny Maestro and the Brooklyn Bridge took the song, rearranged it, did it as a single performance, as just a soul one
Right.
singer, and with great harmonies, and made a hit out of the song.
Wow.
And it was really, I mean, it when you go back and I mean, it's hard to, it's better than the original version. They found that sweet spot that you listen to it and and their version of it 5 6 years later than the original version, which was a minor hit on the country charts. um Really, they just reconstructed the song and made it a beautiful ballad.
Sometimes it's the artist when they reinterpret a song, they're reinterpret the work of rearranging it is so wonderful, so perfect that Johnny Maestro gets the hit and Tom T. Hall doesn't get the hit. Another example of one that you would never pick that was a hit that it just crossed my mind was Richie Havens did "Here Comes the Sun."
Right,
Now, when you cover the Beatles, you're just asking for trouble. How can you
right.
possibly cover them? But and yet with congas, acoustic guitar, and one voice, he pulls it off. In fact, he makes it sound like the sun is coming up. I mean, Richie just did a remarkable job on it, and he couldn't have done this. His usual thing is conga drums and one guitar. That's not the Beatles, and yet he made it his own, made it work.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's so funny you mentioned that song because I have that song with Richie Havens introducing it. He did a an introduction to the song when he visited the city. Remember, he came to the city in
Yeah,
'86, I guess it was '87, something like that. Whenever the
had him on
city,
the morning show.
he came on a morning show, and then we cornered him in the studio afterwards. And he pulled out his guitar. He liked the New York Vinnie thing so much that he
Ah,
actually did like a guitar musical intro.
oh, cool! I never heard that.
Yeah, I gotta have to find it. I got it somewhere, and one of the highlights of my career was having this um this piece of Richie doing that intro. But yeah, he totally reconstructed that song.
Yeah.
Not so much that it was unrecognizable, but
Yeah.
he made the song his own.
Yeah. True.
He took that song and he made it Richie Havens' song. It was a Beatles song, but he made it Richie Havens' song. Just like, I mean, I don't know if this is a great example or a bad example, but Sinatra's cover of Something. While you may not like Sinatra, you may not. His cover of Something uh, was a fantastic piece of music.
Because the story there is the end result was this is how Sinatra would sing it. This is how Sinatra would do it. I'm not coming to you. I can't do Beatles songs. I can reinterpret it. I can sing any song that's ever been written. Here's how I'm doing this one.
Yeah, he did a number of songs like that, and by that time in his career, he didn't have to. I mean, he didn't have to say, "Well, I have to do it true to the Beatles version." He just took it. He gave it to Don Costa, or Quincy Jones, or
Right.
somebody like that. Sat down with it, rearranged it, boom, 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 and it was now Sinatra's song. And the song comes off surprisingly well.
Yeah.
That, and what's the other one that's really always stands out to me? For Once in My Life, with Tony Bennett singing it.
Yeah.
Another song that how the hell are you cover For Once in My Life? Well, if you're Tony Bennett, you just cover it as Tony Bennett.
You sing it like Tony Bennett would sing it, and good luck
You
to
sing
you.
it like Tony Bennett would sing it. You don't try to be Stevie Wonder.
No.
You just come out, you sing it like you would sing it. You interpret the song as you would sing it. So that's the interesting thing about that, Michael, is you have people that can do cover songs, and pull them off because they are such a good artist that you can hear the song in their version, their style, if you will, and it makes perfect sense. If he tried to do it like Stevie Wonder did the song, you'd be
Don't
sitting
even let him hear.
your head.
Don't even let him hear that version before he cuts his own.
Yeah.
Don't let him. Don't do. No way. Don't listen to that. Our friend Dred Scott was talking about an English songwriter named Graham Gouldman. He was in the group 10cc.
NCC, yeah.
And before 10cc, he wrote some songs that became part of the top 40. He wrote Bus Stop for the Hollies. He wrote No Milk Today for Herman's Hermits. He wrote songs for a number of pop charts. And then I went to look in Spotify as Dred was talking about it, Gouldman, and found a solo album of his recent where he recorded those pop songs from the 60s. And his version of No Milk Today is absolutely fabulous. It's just like guitar, bass, drums, and harmonies. And it's cut probably in a home studio, it sounded like. But
Wow.
the spirit to the song was fantastic. No milk today, and it's revealing to hear the spirit of the song as it was recorded from the guy who wrote it. So every time he sees that song, he doesn't hear Herman Hermit's version. He remembers writing it in the kitchen. He remembers the image that he was trying to convey and the energy he was trying to capture with that. And to hear him do the version all these years later is, I recommend it to everybody. Go listen to Graham Gouldman, 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 and look for the song No Milk Today.
I will listen. I will listen to that because that's 10cc was always one of my favorite bands. Always liked 10cc.
Crazy band.
They yeah, it was. As a matter of fact, it was a band that had a pretty decent cult following.
Yeah.
Maybe even still does to this day.
I'm sure a lot of bands have said, what would happen if we put 60 voices on a song? fiber plenty.
Well, they mixed up that, they did a lot of what the Moody Blues were doing in the day
Yeah,
of bringing in choirs and orchestras and
Mellotrons.
just doing something different and actually making it the interesting thing with 10cc is that they made it translate to AM radio, which
They had a couple of AM hits.
yeah,
Yeah.
which with a choir like that with a 60 voice deal going on is very hard to do.
Be quiet. The people are listening. Be quiet. The people are listening.
Yeah.
Be quiet. The people are listening.
It was great. All right, let me see if I can play this.
Okay.
I have the let me see if this will play through here. You hear it?
Yeah.
Little darling, seems like a long, long, lonely winter. But not when you're listening to New York Vinnie on KKCY Sunday morning in the city.
Wow.
Then I mixed it on top of
Richie had a great voice.
yeah, and a nice guy too. I mean,
Wonderful.
Yeah, really.
I interviewed him 3 times. Once at the I guess it was the boarding house. Once at the city, and then we saw him in Miami at the Super Bowl, if you remember.
Right? Yes, I do remember. Wow. That was a great week. That Miami Super Bowl was.
Miami, and even though it wasn't meant to be a part of it, Wolfies 23 will always be a part of it because it had to be. And we were just lucky that Wolfies was still there. Now we couldn't have that evening.
Yeah, that was. We were sitting with John Clayton till what, 4:00 in the morning or something.
Somehow it got late or it got early. I'm not certain which.
It's funny. I was just talking about that. I did a guest spot on a guy's podcast that used to listen to us. Remember Dre? Guy used to call us all the time. Well, like everybody, he's got a podcast now. And he's actually kind of good at it. And he sets it up in his bar down in Renton. And so I went down and I went down and I did did his podcast. And we wound up talking because he was a big John Clayton fan. He loved John Clayton. And we wound up talking about going to Wolfies and seeing John there and Pat at whatever times. I don't even know what time it was. It was late when we got there. It was after
the shows.
It was after the shows and after the party. We went. Didn't we go from South Beach right to Wolfies? I think, or I forget how it all worked out.
We were out of Manhattan. Miami Beach is an island actually off the coast, and you go over by causeways. So we were on the Miami Beach side, but we were staying on the Miami side.
Right. We were staying by the shop. No, we were staying at the NFL hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were staying because we had to take a bus.
And I remember there was a bridge that we had to cross to get anywhere, and they were shooting a commercial on the bridge, and it was all backed up and screwed up our time. And Christy Alley, no, it wasn't her. Anyway, someone was involved in it, some sort of perfume ad. Why they had to close the bridge, I don't know. Shoot it Sunday morning. We got the Super Bowl going on, in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah, so let's close the bridge. Yeah, but Miami's like that. I mean, Miami's like they will accommodate. Although it's interesting. There was what was I just watching yesterday that was talking a bit about how Miami, that something was filmed in California because Scarface. The Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau would not, and the Miami City Council, by extension, would not give them permission to film, give them accommodations. I mean, they couldn't take permission, but give them the accommodations to film Scarface in Miami. So
they didn't like the story.
Right. They didn't like the story. They thought it besmirched the city. So most of Scarface was filmed in California. I didn't know that.
You get better craft services. You get better carpenters. You get better electricians.
Better blood. When you're going to have a movie with that much blood in it, you want the blood to be real. And Amalgamated Blood on Sunset Boulevard just does the best blood.
They're the best. And if you want more, they've always got more. How much blood do you want? More. We can do that.
As a matter of fact, they are the only theatrical company that supplies blood in types.
I want it to be clotting but spurting. We can do that. Let me set up my clot. Let me set up my spurter.
We can give you a 30-second spurt. We can give you a minute spurt. How much of a spurt and how far do you want it to go? You know, when you're cutting the guy up with the chainsaw in the shower, you want it to spurt over the curtain.
And I need a shot where it goes across the ceiling. We always do that shot.
Got to have a ceiling shot. And because this blood's expensive, we ask you to try to do it in one take.
Just set up 10 cameras and see what you get. Good luck to you.
Matter of fact, set up 10 cameras in your cell phone. Oh, they haven't invented cell phones yet. Okay.
Nor have they invented amalgamated blood, but you know, someone's going to do that today. Someone's going to open a door and be the blood shop.
Somebody's on a computer right now, actually, just buying the web name Amalgamated Blood.
I have a sports report for you.
Okay, we need a sports report about now.
I touted the arrival of the rookie prospect Casey Schmidt to the San Francisco Giants. He's supposed to play third base, but since it came up, he hasn't played third base. They have him playing shortstop, and they're giving Brandon Crawford a rest because he's on the injured list. He's a little banged up. First game of his career, he hits a home run. Yesterday, playing against the Nationals, he went 4 for 4 with another home run. And everything this kid does is magic. He is living the life right now. I don't know how long it's going to last, but everything he puts his hand to turns into cash money. And 2 of his hits yesterday were one right at the shortstop that just ate him up, went over his shoulder. The next inning, same thing happened at third base. It was too hot to handle and went over his head. And they called it the San Francisco broadcasters, Dwayne Kuiper and the ex-pitcher. What's his name?
And Mike Kruko.
Thank you. Kruk and Kuiper are saying this kid has got the magic on him. Don't touch him. Don't talk to him. Don't do anything. He's been touched. The baseball gods are happy today. They're going to let Casey Schmidt turn into a star. And he looks the part, you know. His parents are at the ballpark, and he's fresh and young, but he can hit the hell out of the ball. And everything he puts his hand to right now is working for him. So for a while, the baseball gods are shining their benevolent smile upon Casey Schmidt. Catch one of those games, follow up, take a look at the highlights, because he's in all of them.
Yeah, it's so much fun to watch. And we talked about this the other day. So many different phenoms that have come up. Some have made it, some have not, obviously. But there is there's a coolness about watching somebody who just comes out of the blue.
Yeah.
Just, you don't know who this kid is. Maybe if you're one of those people who are constantly watching the top 10 prospects in the Giants organization, but really, for the most part,
you never hear from those guys again. Yeah.
Yeah. And they come up, and sometimes they're up for a week. Sometimes they're up for a month. Sometimes they stay for, like we said the other day, 25 years.
Yeah.
In the case of a guy like Cal Ripken. And when it's your team that happens to, it's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's really it really kind of blows you away, I think. I mean, I think you're really I don't know, you just feel like it's like it's not like it's your son, but it's like it's like you knew about this guy. You saw him first.
Right.
The Mariners have a guy who wears number 50. He's a pitcher, Bryce Miller, and Bryce is one of these guys that if you follow the Mariners, he's been in their farm system a while. But here's a guy that has come up as a pitcher and been phenomenal. I mean, he's one of those pitchers that you will pay to go to the ballpark to see. He's 24 years old. I mean, he's born in 1998, Michael. How does that make you feel? He was born when they were building Safeco Field.
Wow. Well, did he get it together just recently, or has he been a prospect all along?
Well, he's a fourth round pick. He's been around for a while. But I think he's kind of blossomed over the past, I don't know. He's probably in the top 5 prospect, but I think he's really blossomed over the past season, since they let him stay. He stayed up. I mean, he just seems to be one of those guys that you watch him, and he's got a lot of stuff that moves around, and he's composed out there. He's kind of a skinny kid, so he doesn't look like he can throw the ball the way he does, which is always my favorite kind of pitcher. A guy that can throw the ball, and doesn't look like he can throw the ball like that.
Right.
And people will watch. He's somebody to watch. He's like Casey. I like Casey's name. I love the name. Anybody with the name Casey. I mean, like born to be a baseball player, right?
Right.
But
and it's Schmidt with 2 T's. I thought it was like Mike Schmidt with a DT, but nope, it's 2 T's.
Schmidt with 2 T's. Well,
yeah.
He's got to make sure the clubhouse guys know that, because they'll give him a uniform with 1 T on it.
Well, this is a baseball thing. You will understand it. Many people might not appreciate it. But when he came up, he didn't get number 58 for the outfield. They gave him number 6. And that means that they knew he was going to be a difference maker.
Yeah.
That's a number they were holding back for somebody of important, maybe a big trade, maybe somebody comes to the team, maybe someone comes from minor leagues. Somebody shows up and gets a number that's rare. And to bring a kid up like that, start him at shortstop, give him number 6, and have him start hitting home runs in his first week. Say, wait a minute, why did you just start the season with this kid? What did 20 games difference make in the minors? I guess it just galvanized in their opinion that he deserved more than just a look, that it was time.
Well, yeah, it's just, there's just something about watching that. Sometimes, it used to be, I guess they used to keep him down there because they didn't want to lose the year,
right,
off their ability to, what am I at a loss for the word? Their year of control, thank you, right, over the player. But they've done away kind of with that rule. So now it opens up the ability for clubs to bring somebody up in the season if they think he's good. But sometimes there are guys that need a little bit of seasoning. You want to bring a guy up to the majors that's raking at 400 down in the minors.
You want him to be hungry when he gets to town.
Right. You want him to be somebody who's comfortable. Because there are many guys who get to the major leagues, and the difference between what they saw at the major leagues and what they see at the major leagues and what they saw at the minor leagues is really different.
Oh yeah.
I mean, wait a minute. That ball moves like this.
You can't hit it if it moves like that. You know?
Right. There's lots of guys that can, what do they call them? Those 4A players. They
Yeah.
can hit minor league, AAA pitching,
Right.
but when they get to the majors, they learn that, wow, this is very different.
Well, that's an interesting point, Vinny, because how is it that a prospect can show up and find that he can hit major league pitching? How come? How come he's making all these connections? How come it's easier for him than for others? And that's just genetics. You'll never know the answer to it. You never figure it out.
Yeah.
It's a silly question, but it's one you can't help but ask when you see how easy some people transfer their talents to the show.
Well, I think also, Michael, that there are certain guys that come up that it doesn't intimidate them. Some people come up and they get in and we were talking about this the other day with Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
When you would go stand on the ground of Yankee Stadium, I mean, you were just thinking, wow, my father used to talk about this when I was a kid, and this, and the curvature of the earth, and you can't see the monuments, and the only one you can see is Babe Ruth. And, I mean, it's like the first time you go to church, man. You're in there and you go, oh my God, I better not say anything. When none's going to hit me in the back of the head. Well, you get that. There are some players, though, who either have an ego or ice water in their veins, and that doesn't bother them.
They know that in some way or form that they belong there.
Right. They know from day one, pitch one, that I got this. And they go up there and they're not intimidated. They're not thinking about all of that. The only thing they're thinking about is, how do I hit this guy? What's he going to throw me next?
Yeah.
What does he think the book is on me? What do I think the book is on him?
So I don't know if he's going to be enough of an effect on the entire team to turn the Giants season around, but it's possible that he'll be responsible for more wins as a member of this team than we would have otherwise had. And the Giants are still playing Jekyll and Hyde with the league. Like so many teams, they either win by 4 runs or they lose by 6. And there's some times when they just don't have the ability to stop the other team from scoring. And we have to address that. I think that's a pitching problem.
Well, don't you think sometimes the teams get bumps from that kind of stuff, like a young guy like that, and the rest of the team kind of responds to him? Like I'm not going to say that it's not a thing when you're going, but just by going up there and hitting the ball and sparking some things, that the rest of the team, the older guys, the vets, the guys that have been around for a while, they kind of get a little bit of a charge out of it. They kind of get a little bit of an intenseness out of that. I don't think it's like, he stands in the middle of the clubhouse with a uniform on and says, I'm here, let's go, fellas, and charge up San Juan Hill. But there's definitely an energy that's brought sometimes by guys like that.
Undoubtedly. Nothing succeeds like winning. Nothing makes all the problems of the clubhouse go away like winning. Nothing makes the manager seem like a genius after winning a series against a real opponent. Yeah, bring all your tools and let's get this thing done. There's more of us now than there was before. So bring your bat. We got to win.
Right, especially when you see, the Grizzly seasoned veterans, and they start to get a charge out of watching this kid because maybe they see a little bit of them in him, and they also, I mean, baseball players probably more than any other athlete are creatures of superstition and habit.
Yes.
I mean, if you've heard of guys that, they get a double or they drive in 5 runs on a day and they had a bologna with mustard for lunch that day.
Oh, God. No more bologna.
White bread. The rest of the season, they're eating bologna with mustard on white bread with a little bit of lettuce. That's it. That's all. Give me some American cheese. But and the same person has to make the sandwich. All of a sudden they think that is the reason that they're doing what they're doing.
And don't tell Goose Gossage that you don't have any more bologna. That's not what he wants to hear.
No. You make sure if you're one of the clubbies on your way in, you're making sure that you're stopping and picking up the Oscar Mayer, man. You know,
Yeah.
you're getting you got a refrigerator full of that stuff because the
You-
last thing you want is some guy who's hitting 430 over the last 3 weeks to ask you for a bologna sandwich between innings, and you
Ain't got
don't
one.
have one to give him.
That would not be. I wouldn't want to be in your spikes.
And then he strikes out, goes into a batting slump. Who are they blaming?
The obvious culprit.
The clubby.
Well, Vinny, I'm going to go fix my air conditioning today. I put it off long enough, and now temperatures are getting back to the 80s. I still haven't seen to that
Is your AC not working?
in my car.
Oh, your car. Yes. Yeah. I know. Yeah. So you haven't done anything about that yet.
I haven't done anything about it.
Well, you
I'm a shut-in.
probably should today.
Today
Probably
is my day.
Good. Did you? Are you going to chance it with the kit, or are you going to go down to your guy?
I'm going to go with my guy. I'm going to start there because I got to do the oil, and I have a tail light that burned out. So my list of things that I have to do is getting lengthy.
Yes. Yes. Take care of your car, and it will take care of you.
What do you think about the idea that with synthetic oil, you don't change the oil as often, or with new mixtures of oil, you don't change the oil as often? Where do you come down on that?
You know, Michael, if I have an older car, I'm changing the oil because the little particles, the things that break off from
And
the
the old
engine, the
car,
little
yeah.
shreds of stuff that sit in that oil pan, I want them out of there every so often. I want to drain that oil. So I'm a fan of I'll go with the regular oil and drain it more often,
Right.
unless there's something in that engine that tells me that I shouldn't. Some kind of special part, a supercharger, something like that.
Yeah.
Then maybe I make a little bit of an exception there. But I'm a firm believer in changing the oil more than the manufacturer tells you to,
Yes, Vinny, I will do that.
because
I promise.
it cleans it. It just a clean engine is the way to go.
And speaking of cars, have a good show tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning.
8 o'clock in the morning, we'll have drive time. Mikey, have a good weekend. And if the Lord's willing, the creek don't rise, I'll catch up with you on Monday morning.
I was going to put in 1030 oil, but I'm going to put in Manischewitz this time because it's
Well,
quite
you
a
want to
while.
have peace and love in your engine.
You do, and you deserve peace and love.
Peace between the crankshaft, love between the valves.
And CNN, we've thought about it. It was a mistake. Was it a disaster? Vinny, I'll leave that to you. A disaster?
For some people, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But you got to see that nothing has changed with this idiot. Nothing. He's still President Slapdick, and always will
so he
be.
shall remain. Have a good
Yes.
weekend, Ben. Have a
All
good
right.
show
Peace,
tomorrow.
love, and Manischewitz, baby.
What a why.